Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Lean Muscle Warriors podcast. Today we have an amazing guest. Is a colleague of mine, an online coach, and he's from Canada. So his name is Patrick Ash. Hi Patrick, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Francesco. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah,
Good.
this a bit cold today in Vienna, but things are great. We're gonna be in lockdown for another month, but that's fine. You know, there's plenty of space outside to work out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why we're partially virtual. I mean, we've got snow on the ground here, so I don't know if you've got snow on the ground where you are, but
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's uh it's definitely a changing of seasons, so we just have to adapt and move on. So
Yeah. Exactly. And Patrick, do you wanna introduce a little bit what do you do? Who do you help? Yeah, and a little bit about your work as an online trainer.
absolutely. So I'm an endurance coach and exercise physiologist. I own the endurance coaching company, Endurance Journey Coaching. And we help endurance athletes ages 40 plus get stronger, faster, and rock their next endurance event without sacrificing all of their important time and energy. It's really become our life work to help people unlock their best endurance performance, really one they've been dreaming of their whole lives. And often, the people we work with have been searching for answers through the information plethora that we have in front of us to feel, live, and perform better. And really, we work with them to launch them on this trajectory to really develop a whole new version of themselves, one they haven't met yet. And that's really what we're about.
So that's very interesting. Like, is it like athletes, so over 40s?
Yeah.
So in which kind of events do these athletes compete?
So we deal primarily with endurance athletes, runners.
Yeah.
So runners meaning road running, so might be like 5K, 10K,
Okay.
half marathon, marathon. And then we have a contingent of folks who also focus primarily on trail running, ultra distance racing. So, like 50 kilometer, 50 mile, 100 kilometer, 100 mile races.
Wow.
And then we have a contingent of people who do triathlons. So they'll do sprint distance all the way up to Ironman distance.
Wow. That's so cool. And I am very curious. Like, what is your current training routine right now?
My current training routine is interesting in that I'm very intuitive. So, meaning like I often listen to my body and will adjust things basically. But if I were to pare it down for you, essentially I do some form of training most days of the week.
Yeah.
It's just part of my lifestyle. It's what I do. If I'm not moving around, it it tends to affect me negatively. So the more I have some structured training of some sort into the mix, it helps me. So generally, most days of the week.
Yeah.
I'll often change a session though. Like if I have a particular training session planned, I may adapt it or change it based on how I'm feeling. So if I'm a little bit tired on a particular day or maybe feeling a little bit sore, I might adjust it. Or if I'm feeling great, I might, push it a little bit harder. Just I tend to find as I've gotten older into my 40s now, I'm 43, that making those decisions to adjust on a regular basis is super important for consistency
Hmm.
because consistency is the name of the game. The more consistent we
Yep.
can show up every day,
Yeah.
that's where the results come from.
Yeah.
So ultimately that's what I'm striving for is how can I be most consistent and thinking about it in terms of what can I do today that will allow me to show up tomorrow?
Sure.
Because if I do something today that affects my ability to show up tomorrow, maybe that wasn't the best decision. So ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do. If I were to kind of give you a schedule, if you're interested in knowing how I break down my
Absolutely.
week, generally I'll strength train 3 to 4 days a week. I love kettlebells. That's kind of my favorite implement to use. I do get ups, squats, swings, cleans, snatches, presses, all the different one. I'm a big fan of the work of Strong First.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Pavel Sitsulin and his crew there. Really like the work that they do, and I've done a number of training sessions or uh, coaching courses with them. So I really enjoy their work and implement it often in the work that I do. The other thing that I do that you may find interesting is I often wear a heart rate monitor when I'm strength training.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I do that is that I like to evaluate my body's response to a particular training session. So often I'll do a similar session during the week. So it might be like, let's say 10 swings every minute on the minute for 10 or 20 minutes. And I'll wear a heart rate monitor and I'll check my heart response to that particular session. And what that will tell me is, am I a little bit fatigued today, or am I adapting while the session? So if my heart rate's really high or higher than it should be normally, that might tell me, something's going on here,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe I need to adjust the session. So it just gives me that extra layer of feedback. The other thing I'll tap into as well is my breathing rate. So if I'm in a particular session and I find that my breathing rate is higher for a session than it normally is, that might tell me, maybe I'm a little bit more fatigued. And again, maybe I need to adjust things a little bit. So it's always, when I talk about being intuitive, I'm always thinking about, okay, how is my body responding to it? And it's something that we teach our athletes as well, is to really listen to your body. I mean, you can have all the fancy gear in the world, but unless you know how to really understand it in terms of your body's response, you're really missing the point. So it's really important to make sure that you're really in tune with your body at every step. And
How do
that's a big piece of it.
if I can ask you, based on
Yep.
what you said, do you as well monitor? You said that you monitor your breathing. How do
Mm-hmm.
you kind of keep track of your breathing feedback from session to session?
It's really simple, and this is something I learned with Strong First, and it may seem kind of ridiculously simple, but I like simple because
I
that
love
means
simple.
people can, yeah, it means people can apply it. And simple enough is it, how long does it take me between sets to get back to talk test? So when I
Okay.
can talk comfortably
Yeah.
to you just like I am right now,
Yeah.
how long does it take me to do that?
Yeah.
Is it 10 seconds? Is it 20 seconds? Is it 30 seconds? What's my normal?
Yeah.
And then I can adjust my session based on how my breathing's responding to that.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
actually, the talk test is something that even as a personal trainer at the gym, it's something I regularly use like with clients when I say, I want them to work at a specific heart rate, but I don't want them to give, specific indication in terms of like a number of heart rate. And I say, let's
Yeah.
try to find an intensity where you can still feel like you are slightly out of breath, but you can sustain a conversation with a friend. So, kind of an
Yeah.
aerobic state.
Yeah.
And
Simple.
and I was wondering as well because, of course, I guess like aerobic activities. So, like, I don't know. Do you run like during the week? You said that you do four strength training session, and then where does training in terms of running or
Yeah.
aerobic fit into this?
So for me, my endurance right now primarily comes from rowing. That's one
Okay.
thing I do quite a
Yeah.
bit of. I'll run a little bit. I
Yeah.
would say, maybe 1 to 2 times a week at this point. It will change on the year based on what I'm kind of doing. And then I'll generally ride 1 to 2 times a week. So at this point in the year, we're indoors. So I have a indoor trainer set up that I have. And I run a virtual training session once a week. It's a long ride for my endurance athletes. So we generally do like a quick little mobility and strength session. That's about 15 minutes long before, and then we'll do a 2-hour ride after, which I'll lead.
So how do you
So
do it?
that's the other part of my endurance.
How do you do it? How do you lead that session? Is it, you said virtually?
So generally, I develop the training session obviously, and then I'll do it over Zoom typically, and so I'll have athletes from all over the place, and they'll jump on, and we'll do this ride together, and it's essentially like I'm leading their workout. So I give them technique cues. We, encourage them as we go along, and yeah, it's a way for us to have some good quality structured training on the bike
Yeah.
when we're inside. So that's what I do once a week.
That is so cool. And since we are into training, I'm very curious because I met a lot of people who loves running, who loves to do that as part of their regular routine. So I'm curious, what's your stance on training an athlete, an endurance athlete? How does if you believe resistance training should be a part of their normal training routine, and what is like in your opinion the difference between a regular gym based training plan?
I would say that for endurance athletes, there's three components to that question. The first one is I believe all endurance athletes should have some sort of movement practice.
Hmm.
So meaning something that's allowing them to support and encourage a good range of motion in their body. So some form of activity that does that. So for me, I primarily use two methods in my practice. I'll use foundation training as one, and then the other one is MoveNat or Move Natural. Some of those principles that I've done work with both of those companies in some training work. So those are two pieces that I often use. The other piece is strength work, I believe, is essential. And the reason why I believe it's essential, along with the movement training, is because as we get older, especially the population I work with, the body's ability to be resilient, durable, to make sure that we're keeping on top of maintaining bone density and range of motion becomes super important in endurance sport, because the thing that tends to happen in these races is as the race gets longer and as the athlete tends to get towards the finish line, the race tends to break down, and the body and the technique tends to break down later on in the race. So the movement practice, the strength, those add a level of durability and resiliency to the body that allows them to maintain their form and technique in the later stages of the race when it typically matters.
Hold on, can you repeat
So
the last?
that's why those two components.
Can you repeat, sorry, the last sentence because you froze a little? Just the last sentence.
Oh, did it? Okay. Yeah. So the strength and mobility is really important for resiliency, because as the athlete gets later in the race, their ability to hold their form technique is a.
Yeah. Okay. I see. It's breaking down. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it becomes very very important to implement. And what would you recommend? Because if I understood right, like you work as well with normal people, so people that have a family, have a job, and then they like to do this in their free time. So let's say that, in my experience, all the people I work with, they can aim for 3 to 5 hours a week of training. How does, so what would you say it's, in your opinion, the people you work with, how do you manage this time? Can your client work out more? Are there any specific guidance in terms of that?
The time variable is really dependent on the length of the event that they're training for. So obviously, the longer the event, the more training time that's involved, especially from developing the endurance to do those events. So if I were to kind of give you a range, this is very general. I mean, it's going to differ on a particular person, but I would say, 6 hours a week up to, the longer distances probably get sort of the 15-16 hours would probably be at the longer end.
Wow.
For most of the athletes I work with. Now, there's some some outliers there on either end, just based on their goals, their lifestyle, and that sort of thing. But generally, most people would fit in that range.
Yeah. Yeah, coming from a swimming competitive background, I think I was average 35 hours a week of training. Swimming is another
Wow. Yeah.
super high volume sport. I'm sure you know. But the thing is, if someone have instead, I don't know, aesthetic goals, they can get away as well with 3 to 4 hours a week of training. But yeah, with endurance, times becomes even more valuable than it is naturally.
I would probably make the point too that for endurance athletes, when we talk about a strength program or resistance training program and movement program, I look at it in this perspective that those activities should always be a complement and a support to the endurance activities, training activities that they're doing. So they should never detract from an athlete's ability to be consistent in those activities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes, in other words, another way of saying it is you never want an athlete to be so sore from their strength or mobility exercises that they can't perform their endurance exercises the next day, because that's counterproductive.
Exactly. Yeah, that's I completely agree on this, and this is the difference between doing something general or something specific, right? So if a person have 3 hours a week available for training, you surely want to use the biggest percentage for the specific activity, so running.
Exactly.
And then just kind of complement with the some sort of resistance training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I would say too, the other piece that's super important is the program for the athletes that I work with has to be simple to follow. It can't, it's got to require minimal equipment
yeah,
and be able to execute it from warm up to finish
yeah,
in 30 minutes or less, generally
fantastic,
speaking, because
fantastic.
of the amount of time it takes to train the endurance components.
Yeah.
That time efficiency becomes essential.
Yeah, of course. And imagine, I'm curious because now we're talking about training, and I always wonder, like, since let's say I am an athlete, endurance athlete, and I already challenge my heart rate and cardiovascular system quite a lot during the running session. So how do you manage the resistance training session? Because in the resistance training session, you will convey with me that you can work on a range of repetitions. So you can work with strength, hypertrophy, or endurance. Would you bring into the resistance training as well the cardiovascular aspect? Or would you focus instead of something different like more hypertrophy or strength? I don't think you have ever your athletes maxing out like a deadlift
No.
one rep. Exactly. Okay.
No, often for me, it's looking at a progressive model. So doing a similar set of exercises over a period of time, then increasing the resistance within that as their body adapts, but always with the the asterisks of never so challenging that you can't perform your session tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's always the golden rule. So that's where that intuitiveness that I talked about earlier, and listening to your body and adjusting as you need to as you go through, becomes super important.
And you were telling me earlier that as well in your field there is this thing of being a little bit jealous of the knowledges. So I think it's
Yeah.
great that this style of coaching clients is as well a way to make the person independent, because they're gonna auto-regulate the session based on how they feel. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
And
No, it becomes essential for the athletes that I work with for sure.
cool. And since we are talking as well about time, like imagine I am contacting you for some guidance, and I'm really passionate about, I don't know, running, and I want to compete, but I'm really busy. I am an executive, I am a dad, and I don't have much time. Even if we don't work together, what would you say in your experience is a 5 minute action I can take to make time for working out, for training?
Well, firstly, I would say get a plan and support from a professional coach
Okay?
to ensure, and this is the key line, to ensure the plan will fit into your life.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people will purchase a plan online or whatever and say, okay, I bought the plan. Now I'm going to try to fit my life around this plan.
yeah,
And that never works
yeah,
because life is always going to happen.
yeah,
There's always going to be things that come up that are going to impact your ability to be consistent. So this is where a coach can be super, super helpful in navigating the things that happen in life that will impact your ability to be consistent. Then from there, I would say, like, if we're talking about just a day-to-day action step,
yeah,
this is super important. I always tell my athletes the day before a training session. So if it's Friday today, what I want you to do Friday for your training session on Saturday is go into your calendar, review your session so you know exactly what you have to do, get your gear ready, and then look at your calendar and say, when do I make time for this? Not find time, you're going to make time for it. So what we're doing by doing that little bit of 5 minute preparation is we're taking away decisions the next day because we've already made them now. We know what we're going to do. We've got our gear ready. So when you get up or whenever you're going to go to your session, you're not wasting time saying, oh, what do I have to get ready? Oh, what's the session again?
yeah,
And you've already made the time in your calendar so that you don't have to make those decisions. Then the last thing I would say from a motivation perspective, if you're struggling with motivation on that particular day, you're, just not feeling your fitness mojo to get after it, I always say commit to the first 10 minutes. Just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to do the first 10 minutes and then I'll see what happens. Because generally speaking, once you get in and start and get through that first 10 minutes, the rest of it just starts happening. So that's what I would say are some helpful steps to help with consistency and taking that 5 minute action.
love it. So reach out for support, plan, and then show up.
Yep, you got it. We say that all the time at Endurance Journey. Show up is one of our primary principles for sure.
Yeah, I love that mindset. Patrick, just to finish, I'm curious, what is a $100 or less purchase that really impact and transform your life?
I love this question. So for me, I'll stick to sort of the fitness theme, but generally speaking, the kettlebell was definitely one of those things that I purchased for under $100. That's been amazing for me. The second thing, and I learned this from MoveNet, is I got a 2x4, a 6-foot long 2x4. And it's one of my cheapest pieces of exercise equipment, but I use it a lot for balance work.
Fantastic.
So just walking on it back and forth, I'll have the kettlebell, I'll carry it.
So how
These
is it?
type
What
of
is
things,
it?
simple.
It's like a board?
Simple. Yeah, basically like a 2x4, 6-foot long. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, you can do lots of different exercises on that board, but it challenges your balance. And that's
Right.
something, especially as older athletes, that we have to continue to work on is balance and stability. So it's an easy thing that you can put in your home gym that's super simple, and and I do it as part of my warm up every day.
Yeah.
It's just part of what I do. So
Yeah. And you know what? With the kettlebell, I can feel you because this summer I was traveling and I was out for shopping and I saw this kettlebell and I was like, for 50 euro, like it's gonna last forever. It's not gonna break,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, those things won't break down for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Cool. Patrick, if I were to wanting to work with you or to contact you, how do I find you? And yeah, how do I get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way is I'm on social media on Facebook, Endurance Journey Coaching, and I've actually started a brand new group on Facebook. It's free to jump in there. So if you're on Facebook, check it out. It's called Fit and Fast After 40.
Okay.
That's a awesome thing to join in. Provide lots of content and support, and it's all people who are in our genre, our age genre, are looking to stay fit and fast after we're 40. And then I have my website, endurancejourney.com, is a great place to check us out there as well. And Instagram, Endurance Journey. So those are the main vehicles to check us out at.
Cool. I'm gonna share the link to those sources anyway, so you're gonna find them in the descriptions.
Perfect.
Patrick, thank you. Thanks so much for coming today. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Francesco. And I'm super grateful to you to have me on your show. And this was a lot of fun.
Good luck for the future.
You as well.
Ciao,
Take
ciao.
care.